Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June Astro Talks, not July yet. Apologies for my internet if it goes a bit glitchy. I am coming to you hooked up to a mobile hotspot. But this month, we will be hearing from Ben Sorensen. Ben will be sharing the story behind ROO-VER, the mission goals, and what it means for Australia's future on the moon. Ben Sorensen is ROO-VER Mission and EL2 Consortium Director, leading Australia's collaboration between industry, research and government to undertake Australia's mission to the moon. The ROO-VER mission is supported by the Australian Space Agency and will see an Australian-designed and built Lunar Rover operate on the moon later this decade. Through this mission, ELO2 Consortium is strengthening Australia's space industry by developing and commercialising cutting-edge capabilities in cybersecurity, AI, ML and robotics, autonomous systems and other critical national technologies. Ben has served on boards and committees across public and private sectors, including as a board member of the Cybersecurity CRC and commercial director at CSIRO's Data 61. At CSIRO, he led strategic collaborations in enterprise defence, national security, including partnerships with defence primes, DSTG and DARPA. In 2021, he and his team received the Eureka Prize for Safeguarding Australia. Thank you, Ben. Following Ben's talk, we'll have the ASV's own Bill Stent at the telescope Gent, and he will be sharing what's up in the sky or what's in the sky for June and July. But for now, let's bring Ben in and hand it over to Ben.
G'day everyone, thanks Mark. Appreciate the intro. Look, I'd just like to say thank you for welcoming me to present to the Society this evening. I'm in Brisbane and tonight is a huge strawberry moon, a name that comes from the North American Indigenous peoples, marking the strawberry harvest. Early this evening, I watched it rise over soccer training with my 9-year-old son, and his name's Rafferty. And that sort of took me back, that and tonight's talk took me back 40 years ago to when I was around his age as well. And it was in Christmas 1985 that I got my first telescope. It's the only one I've ever gotten and I loved it. But in 1986, Halley's Comet was our visitor. And we spent many nights 40 years ago peering through the eyepiece at constellations and other celestial objects. We saw Halley's Comet start as a dot and grow closer, and over months grow a tail that grew larger in the sky. And it's a little bit like closing the circle for me to be here and having a chat with you guys. So thank you very much for having me here tonight. As Mark said, please drop some questions into the chat if you want at any points, and I'll try to answer those as I go along. But first, a little bit of a story. In a few years' time, a small rover, it's the size of a suitcase, it's going to roll out onto the moon's surface and it's going to get to work. It will have spent about almost 7 years by then in design, building and test phases. It'll have gone through many, many, many months of the most rigorous testing, and it'll have traveled about 384,000 kilometers to get to the moon. This rover, it's going to be called ROO-VER, it's going to be emblazoned with the Australian flag, something we can all be proud of. So only about 7 rovers have successfully landed on the moon. And they're from countries like Russia, the United States, China and India, Japan. Countries that are massively bigger than us, 13 times, 54 times our population. And our rover, ROO-VER, is going to be one of the next ones on the lunar surface. So there's a bit of a story here about why we're taking on this challenge. Why is Australia doing it? Part of it is because we believe we can, and it can make us all better. It can make it better for Australia. So I lead the ELO2 Consortium, and it's made up of 21 organisations with some of Australia's best and brightest minds from the space industry and non-space industry, with small robotics firms, 10 of Australia's best research universities, and the contributions from each and every one of them is vital to succeeding. There's no one organisation in Australia that can do this on their own, and through this, we'll be building Australia's capability and capacity to do interesting things. So our challenge as ELO2 is to build, design and test a lunar rover and demonstrate the remote operation of that rover on the moon's surface. It's an environment where just 14 humans have ever set foot. And we and the Australian Space Agency are collaborating with NASA, and it's a rare opportunity. We're using complex science, hugely complex technology, and deep expertise in operating in extreme environments. We're using complex science, extensive collaboration between research and industry. And part of my goal is that this is an exemplar ELO2, and the ROO-VER mission is an exemplar in industry research collaboration, something that Australia can do very well, but unfortunately we're currently close to last in the OECD for industry research collaboration. The good news about that is the only way is up. And so through this consortium, we want to show how Australia can do these things, how we can work on challenges which are phenomenally difficult, but show that if we can do that for the space environment, doing it in the terrestrial environments in different fields is something which is within our grasp and we should be able to do more of. Here in Australia, what goes often unrealised, potentially unappreciated a lot of the time, is how fundamental space is to our individual lives. You know, it's fundamental to our country's economy, our prosperity, and our security. And tasks as simple as checking the weather in the morning or getting directions, they're all down to space. Making sure I've got a jumper on, or that I'm wearing a hat when I'm going out. Do I need a raincoat or an umbrella? Talking to all of you tonight is made possible through space, and to those that are going to watch this later on through the internet, wherever they are in the world. So it's also fundamental to our core industries, our biggest export industries, resources and agriculture. And so what you see on screen there is a ROO-VER prototype. It is 40 centimeters by 50 centimeters by 40 centimeters high. It's 20 kilograms, less than 20 kilograms. And you can see it showing there at QUT at the Yandiwamba lunar facility here in Brisbane, with a lunar regolith simulant in the ground that it's driving on to help us understand how that rover, that robot, will operate in different environments and different terrain. We took this photo back in December, and it is our representative prototype at the time for what our design was then. Look, ambitious space missions like this one, they require sovereign technologies and capabilities, and for us to build our own sovereign technologies and capabilities. We've got to operate this 384,000 kilometers away in minus 100 degrees, minus 120 on one side, but in the sun, it's about plus 160 on the other side. It requires technology that we need to develop ourselves, not rely upon others for. So it's important for Australia to do this. And it requires us to build our relationships. And part of us doing this is to build our relationships externally and to be a great partner in the international efforts such as the Artemis program, which is moving towards a sustainable human presence on the moon. So our objective is to demonstrate the remote operation of an Australian designed and made lunar rover on the moon, operated from an Australian remote operations centre. Australia is a world leader in extreme environment robotics. We have some of the most extreme environments on the planet. We've got lots of people clustered around the southeast coast, between pretty much Brisbane and Adelaide. But we have very rugged and remote terrain and environments where we operate hundreds of robots. EPE, the company that I am employed by, we are the grantee. We actually have hundreds of robots that we have with the Australian Defence Force, and thousands of sensors that we run as fleets and maintain for the Australian Defence Force. So we will be showcasing Australia's capability to do this sort of work on the moon. And the job is what we call foundational services lunar rover. And the foundational services are the things that are required to facilitate that human presence on the moon, that sustainable human presence on the moon. We start with the most basic things, so being able to get there, and that is not our task. But once there, being able to operate safely in that environment where there is no atmosphere, close to no, it's an exosphere with very few particles, nothing like what we have here. with very high radiation environments. We will be operating in the daytime so that the sun is coming down. The daytime goes for 14 Earth days. And as I said, very high thermal differentials from 160 degrees in the sun to almost minus 120 in the shade. The radiation obviously is from the sun, but there's also high energy particles which come from deep space. Funny fact, I learned the other day that the moon is the greatest source of gamma radiation. If you look up in the sky compared to the sun, it is even more. And we understand that's because of interactions of the solar rays and other radiation hitting the regolith, the moon dirt that covers the surface of the moon, and emitting gamma radiation outward. So while it's very bright in the visual spectrum, it's also very bright in the gamma part of the spectrum. So that's very interesting for us, having robotics that can work in that environment, in vacuum, in very hot, in very radiation intensive environments. The regolith itself is also quite challenging. It is a very fine particle between about 20 and 70 microns. So, you know, the wool, the fleece of merino sheep that Australia is so famous for, superfine merino is around 20 microns. So it's very, very fine. It's sharp. It's scratchy. It's about 3.5 billion years old of compacted and pulverized silicates and other things, which are very sharp and abrasive, but also electrostatically charged. So they stick to things and they're very difficult to get rid of them once they're on there. It is our most ambitious project to date as a country going into the moon. We received $42 million from the Australian Space Agency, and our partners together are bringing the other 20% roughly, with investments of around $12 million on top. So this is from our university and industry partners. Later this decade, we will launch, we will fly to the moon, and we'll fly to the South Pole. The South Pole is one of the oldest parts of the solar system. As many objects come in along the celestial plane and hit the side of the moon, the sides that we see and the other side of the moon, the South Pole and the North Pole are relatively less impacted. It's a geology and geography which is unique in the solar system. It is an area that no humans have been to. It's an area that few robotic platforms have been to. Recent landings, not iSpace last week, but there was the Intuitive Machines 2 mission earlier this year, which had a landing in February, landed on the South Pole. And it's an area of great interest to us from the Artemis program perspective, but also for exploration in space. We're working very closely with the United States, of course, and the NASA Commercial Lunar Payload Service is driving or facilitating our vehicle up there. And that's through the Australian relationship through the Space Act agreements.
So there is a question there for you, Ben, from
Sure.
Kate, just wondering about the focus of NASA due to budget challenges is to build relationships with commercial and private entities. Do you see a place for Australian companies such as ELO2 playing a bigger part?
Well,
given what's
currently
going on over in the US?
Yeah, sure. So currently the NASA Commercial Lunar Payload Services program and some of their other programs, they're definitely focused on building the space industry. Now that is a big goal for us through this activity, but it's not. They're really focused on building the United States space industry. So part of the procurement rules that they have with NASA is that they can only procure from US companies, and they're not partnering with Australian companies. So we partner with the Australian Space Agency that partners with NASA. Budget challenges are always going to be there. What's important for us is that we're demonstrating Australian capability and our ability to plug into global supply chains and deliver capabilities and capacity that are valuable to our partners around the world and competitive as well. So we have 40 universities in Australia, which are some of the best research universities in the world. We're a wonderful place to do R&D. We're a safe, stable environment. Our IP regime is safe and stable, and we've got a relatively rich population with, compared to many other countries, low inequality. It means it's a great place for us to take those technologies and incubate them. But the big opportunity for us in the space industry is to take those technologies through programs like the ROO-VER mission, demonstrate them, and then feed them into partners in the global supply chain that are funded, I think, Kate, in large part by NASA and other commercial programs where they're trying to build those industries. So yeah, there's a place for us to play, and we're trying to drive through that over the next few years. You'll see on the screen here principles. This is how we think, and it's a starting point for us. We sort of have to. As soon as you get outside the atmosphere, you will perish unless you have humility. So in our team, no one has all the answers. No one can tell the future. And so really the value is in the diversity of perspectives, and we look to see where we can learn that from. And that's really important in our consortium with around 21 different partners who all bring different skills, experience, capability and capacity, creativity and resources to the consortium and to the ROO-VER mission to help it succeed. And we're really focusing on how to understand the problem sets that we're working with. There are many things about extreme environment robotics that we do very well in the terrestrial world, but we have to take them into a completely different domain. And when we do that, the problem sets evolve and are different, and it requires us to think differently and do a lot of planning right up front to understand those problems and also understand the human parts to it. There's an interesting post I saw by former NASA Director Dan Golden a couple of months ago, and he was talking about interfaces are the problem, technical interfaces, but actually human interfaces as well. And this is true. This is how do we understand those interconnected technical problems, but also understand that humans are the secret sauce that will make it all work. And how do we help each other move along through that process to get the best out of each other for the mission. We've got 3 lines of effort. So we're funded under a grant from the Commonwealth, the Moon to Mars Trailblazer Initiative. We just call it the ROO-VER mission now. It's a lot easier. 3 lines of effort for us are really that first one of technical to really do everything that's required to make this mission successful on behalf of Australia. That includes all the design, the build, the testing here in Australia, and then the remote operation on the surface of the moon. The next bit is really what we've got to talk about in the first line of effort, and why I'm talking to you today. It's to inspire and engage Australians. This is something that we've never done, and once we are doing it, this is something which I think every Australian is going to be proud that we have been a part of and we could do. To have it demonstrated that we could do it, and we're really keen to ensure that people find space and the ROO-VER mission and these other things like robotics and STEM, even the arts part of it, accessible so that they understand how they can be a part of space, whether it's through societies like your own or robotic societies or other things altogether. So we've got some fairly large programs around that for all of our partners, which will culminate with the mission on the moon in a few years' time. Because we're funded by the Department of Industry, of course, industry development is actually the end goal here. I've got to make the point here that of the $54 million for our program, around 95% of that will be spent here in Australia. The only funds we're spending overseas are those that we're spending on long lead time products which are space rated that we don't build here and we can't build here in a way which is cost effective or at the right level of risk, and i.e. doesn't add risk to the mission. So we will build capability capacity here and accelerate growth. The focus that we have is employment. At the moment, I think we've got around 17 people that have been employed by the work in stage 1. We've already been working for 2.5 years, but in a competitive part of this process to then be awarded the mission. We'll have around 50 people working full-time on this at peak. we'll have a whole bunch of interns that will flow through as well from our university partners and beyond. And I think throughout the life of the project, we'll have around the input from around 100 people that have contributed to make this successful. And then there's all the people that support them around and watch it from the side.
We have another question for you, Ben.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say part of our challenges, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is power, space, and weight. So constraints drive a lot of our thinking. So we do have radios on there, but the way that we'll be communicating back to Earth through remote operation centers will probably it'll be a more traditional way of flowing it through the lander and back through the deep space network to the ground stations here in Australia. I think we're going to be a little bit constrained on that one, on power, space, and weight, to add in extra radios, unfortunately. I'll skip along. As I said, constraint-driven design. So this really is where we start. Once we understand our mission, it's to the lunar surface. It's around 8 Earth days over a 14 Earth day daylight period. And we are doing a technical demonstration. So we're demonstrating that Australia can do this work and that this technology is feasible and that it does work in the lunar environment. So it's important to note that it is a technology demonstration, not a science mission or a higher risk mission. But when we think about this, we really do work through all the risks, the things that are going to prevent us from succeeding, and work backwards from there once we understand the mission. Our mission, just so everyone knows, is to go to the South Pole, demonstrate our foundational services Lunar Rover capabilities, Australia's capabilities, and remotely operate it from here on Earth. Those capabilities include extreme environment robotics, it's the sensing, it's the power generation. You can see on this image that we've got solar cells on the side. So part of the environmental challenge here is on the South Pole, there is no overhead sunlight. Sunlight comes in at around a 7-degree angle of incidence. Very, very long shadows. We have to generate our own power and we have to perform a mission. We have to do a transit through different parts of the landing zone to demonstrate the capabilities and show that we can do some of this stuff. Size, weight, and power. So very small, as I said, roughly a suitcase size, so 40 by 40 by 50 centimeters, only 20 kilograms. And the average power is going to sit around that 26 to 28 watt. So those of us that are, my age, I'll turn 48 next week. Incandescent light bulb, 60 watt is what we had in the house as kids usually, and on less than an incandescent light bulb, this will be running, along with compute. Now, other capabilities that we're demonstrating through this are the performance ones. So it will be semi-autonomous. So what we call robotic autonomy level 5. And that means that it'll be able to operate without a human in the loop for discrete activities. So some of the things we'll be doing up there are simultaneous localization and mapping using visual aids only. That's often done on Earth with LiDAR sensors, which send out maybe 300,000 points per second of lasers, capture the bounce back to get a high fidelity map of the environment and help a robot to understand where it is in that environment, and then terrain and traversability, and then maybe inform an AI agent, an autonomous agent on there on how to navigate. In our case, what we'll be doing is using Visual Slam to identify obstacles and to help then send that information back to Earth so that we can then develop path planning off board. And that AI, that semi-autonomous capability, will allow the rover to transit safely and do obstacle detection and avoidance and keep that platform safe from those obstacles. We're keeping in mind it's actually only a small vehicle. One of the challenges we have of the lunar environment is the fidelity of our maps. It's an unstructured environment, and at best we might call it semi-structured. And when we think about structured environments, they're really around the predictability of the environment. I'm talking to you this evening from my office, which is very predictable. I've got a square desk, I've got a square doorway, and I've got windows, a flat floor. In a unstructured environment, none of those things are predictable. We don't know exactly where we're going to land. While we will be picking landing sites shortly, we don't know when it lands exactly what the discrete environment around it will be. The semi-autonomous capability is about keeping the rover safe, and that's a fundamental for foundational services. We will be operating it remotely, 384,000 kilometers away from the operators here on Earth. Something to think about. This will be the furthest that an Australian has ever travelled from Earth. Just it boggles my mind when I think about that stuff. It's just so much further away. Navigation, there are no maps. There's no GPS. The best maps we can get is from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter just prior to landing. The resolution on that is around 2 meters. At best, maybe 1 meter. And I'll remind you again, the size of the rover is 40 centimeters by 40 centimeters by 50. So even at the 1 meter resolution, we can find that environment could have obstacles which would be unable, this rover unable to transit. So this is again where the onboard capabilities become very important. So discreetly, they help us develop the capabilities and also help the rover operate. And as we develop those capabilities and then prove them in that environment, we're increasing the technology readiness level and the ability for us to apply those things into other industries. And it's also about payload operations. So we will be hosting a payload on this platform, and we'll be operating that as well to help that be a technical demonstration as well. Tom, I just want to say to you, mate, if there's anything you want to ask about, just yell out. And I'm trying to keep this pretty simple. I'll be really clear. I'm not an engineer and I'm not a scientist. What I am trying to do is help our technical people to have impact. And this stuff is tricky, absolutely. But throw in any questions you want about anything you want me to drill into deeper or just be a little bit simpler with. And Kate, yeah, BHP is a key part of our consortium. They were a part of it in stage 1 and in stage 2. BHP's role is to help us with the translation of that technology into the terrestrial environment. So as I said, 95% of what we spend will be here in Australia, but 100% of the benefit of this work actually accrues here on Earth. The technologies that we're using and developing to go to the moon and to safely operate there, there are 5 of what the Department of Industry calls critical technologies in the national interest. And the only 2 we're not working on are quantum and biotechnology, critical technologies. Each of those technologies and everything you see on that rover are able to be applied into Australia's other industries. So our traditional industries, agriculture, mining, defence, aged care even, if we look at computer vision and how that can be used to help people. So I'll just skip to another slide and I'll give you a bit of a view on some of the technology here and where they could be used. So we are developing novel radios. We're using some off-the-shelf cameras and other things like that, but they've never been used in space. Thermal management is a huge challenge, and understanding how to do that helps us to do robotics that can work in different environments here on Earth. Mining environments can be quite warm, and as one example. The computation, how that's used, how we apply that with low energy and power constrained environments, and also with that navigation challenge in GPS denied environments. The moon doesn't have any GPS. There's no There's no maps that are that useful. We have to be able to navigate in those unstructured environments. And so part of the navigation challenge is, what if we could develop those technologies which can then be used in GPS-denied environments, or environments that are very low information before you get to them, and put robots in there and be able to do their work, whether it's a mining or an agricultural environment, probably two of the most common ones that would be in Australia. But also environments where we may not want to be able to send people because they're unsafe environments for people. We can use robotics for extreme environments where we can normally try to keep people away from that. I'll just skip on a little bit. A bit about our partners. As I said, this can't be done with anyone on their own. So we are a truly national mission. We have partners from across the country. Our one partner from overseas is Colorado School of Mines. They've received a small amount of funding in stage 1, and at the moment in stage 2 they're not. What they bring is a wonderful depth of knowledge in the lunar geology and geography of the lunar South Pole, which has helped us to assess around 20 different landing sites and bring them down to a short list of 9, which I think will soon, probably in the next few weeks, bring that down to about 2 or 3 candidate landing sites. We have 10 Australian universities involved, and then industry partners. So led by EPE, a company that employs me, and our technical co-lead, Lunar Outpost Oceania, which is the Australian arm of Lunar Outpost from the United States, that has had a Lunar Rover delivered to the moon on IM2. Unfortunately, because that lander had not sure what the best description is, it did land safely, but it fell over onto its side. And so the rover wasn't able to be deployed. We have 10 of Australia's best universities. We're just so lucky to be working with them. Together, they bring billions of dollars worth of infrastructure, but just amazing minds, and that are tackling a whole bunch of different challenges, from RMIT with novel technologies, 3D printing and fabrication of components, Swinburne in Melbourne looking at dust mitigation with point charge technology, radiation mitigation, Melbourne Space Laboratory at the University of Melbourne helping us with thermal management. So they are arguably one of the most experienced groups in Australia, having led the Spirit mission. University of Tasmania, Andrew, they are helping us with some engineering work later on, some electrical engineering work. Edith Cowan University in WA is helping with some cybersecurity. One of my former colleagues from the Cybersecurity Cooperative Research Centre, Professor Helgi Janicki, is the lead from over there. The University of Adelaide has the Exteris Laboratory and Lunar Environments, which is north of, they've got a North Terrace in town, but also about up near the Barossa Valley at Roseworthy, they have an entire outdoor facility and indoor control facility where we will run full rehearsals of the mission, our ConOps, if you will, the concept of operations, in a purpose-built environment through their investments there. They also have fine regolith environments where we can test how that regolith simulant, the rock, how it interacts with the rover, how the rover drives in it, and how that very fine powder might impact the mechanisms of the rover. In Queensland, we have the QUT who are helping us with some of their autonomy capabilities, and the University of Sydney's Australian Centre for Robotics, who are also experts at navigation, helping us with path planning and helping to keep the robot safe. ANU from Canberra helping us with testing, with a lot of their space testing facilities that we'll be utilising there. And industry partners, Monash. Well, Monash we've had a mission change, and this is something I haven't said. I'll show you what this looks like. You can see this on the front of the rover there. There's a backhoe. Now that's a robotic arm. So we've developed a whole bunch of robotics to go on this, and a robotic arm. And in fact, the design of that was in stage one by a young university student who was still an undergraduate. We ran an open innovation activity to all Australians who wanted to come up with the design for the robotic arm, and he developed that, and we incorporated it into our design. But our mission changed a little bit. So we were originally looking to dig up regolith and transport it to another place for sampling, but we won't be doing that now. We'll be doing something slightly different. So that robotic arm is gone, and that's what Monash was helping us with. So we're looking for new ways for Monash to help us out now, and they will. I'll just have a quick look at some questions here. Doesn't the environment go outside mil-spec? Where does that take you with regard to reliability? Yeah, it's not quite mil-spec. So there are standards. There's a whole bunch of standards. I had to write the whole list. Many standards which are NASA standards. So the standards for space are quite often very different from mil-spec. There are aspects of mil-spec which, for certain engineering aspects, which are applicable, but there are a whole bunch of things that are not. And Sandra, I'm happy to, if you want to drill into that question, I'm happy to go further with that one if you want. But reliability is obviously a real key challenge for us. So the space environment has some interesting things that you don't think about down here. For instance, the vacuum causes off-gassing of components. So having components that are of certain materials that have been tested in vacuum environments and thermal environments to understand how they perform, they can impact the performance of a spacecraft, which ROO-VER technically is. Little things that you learn along the way, like we're not space experts, but they've been learnt along the way through the space programs around the world. Tin grows whiskers in space. So tin-based solders are things that you can't have. So all of those things go towards reliability. Our mission, however, is a Class D mission. So a Class D mission is essentially accepting a high degree of risk and recognizing the reliability doesn't need to be the same level of reliability that it is for human spaceflight, where you have to successfully return a human to the Earth. So when we look at our mission requirements as our starting point, our reliability is that we need to be able to just demonstrate reliability, essentially, to demonstrate some key requirements of performance around mobility of the robot on the moon and connectivity back here onto Earth, that remote operation, the semi-autonomous capabilities, and doing that just during the daylight hour, the daylight period. We don't have to survive a night, so our reliability can be boxed in that regard. Happy to share some email addresses later on. And Kate, with ROO-VER being semi-autonomous, what aspects will be solely the rover's decision and what will be human-driven? At the moment, what our plan of doing this to keep it safe is that we will be using the onboard autonomy to identify obstacles and keep it safe and help with some of the mapping. So just mapping is a good point to start on. This is where the autonomy helps us. So the camera systems that are on there, which have computer vision, will be creating point clouds of the environment, point clouds telling us what the environment is and what's in there, how far away it is from the rover, different parts of the environment. As I said, no maps. So we need to orient ourselves somehow. So we'll do that with 4 different features that are on the moon. One will be the lander. So we will know where the lander is, and that will be our key reference point. A second point will be the rover's tracks. There's no wind up there, so the tracks don't blow away. So we'll be able to use that as a reference point for our mapping and for the autonomy system. Other features such as identified obstacles in the environment, like a rock or a crater or a hill or something like that. And the fourth type of feature is celestial objects. So it'll be the sun or the earth. And so the autonomy will be using some of those things to help orient the rover and map it. It'll also help with pose detection. So understanding the pose of the rover on the terrain. It is designed to operate on inclines of around up to 20 degrees. And that's an extreme, that's giving us a bit of margin. So we should be trying to go around 15, no more than 15. So the autonomy will help us with that. It'll send that information to be processed, and we will have autonomy helping us with path planning as well. So recognizing long shadows, the need to generate power, the need to keep safe from obstacles. So the autonomy will again help with that. And the human part of this is to make sure that those plans, to verify that those plans are safe as we're operating the rover on the moon. So a human will generally always be in the loop and checking some of those plans as we go. In terms of sponsors, yeah, look, these are partners at the moment as opposed to sponsors. So no one's just kicking in cash. Everyone's contributing in different ways, helping us to either prove technology, develop technology, run the mission, or to help us to translate technology here on Earth. So BHP's role is definitely in that, and so is EPE's in translating technology, and Lunar Outpost in particular. So there is interest in mining on the moon in the long term in general. So this is certainly something that is of interest to the United States and other countries in the United States. Lunar Outpost, our partner, received the first check from NASA for the procurement of lunar rocks, through a commercial transaction. It was a $1 check. It was signed by Bill Nelson, the previous director of NASA. The actual resource has yet to be properly delivered back to Earth, but there's a lot of interesting legal and ethical, certainly, and environmental and other considerations that are going through at the moment. One thing's important to note is as we move towards an intent of the Artemis program for a sustainable human presence on the moon, we won't be sending up resources up there because the cost of that is too great. So resources will come from the moon. I'm just going to skip along a little bit and I'll try to answer some other questions as I go. Here's a bit of the work that we've been doing over the last 2.5 years. So we design, we prototype, and we test, and then we do it all again, and we do it over and over again. So what you can see here are some of the earlier prototypes that have been driving in different environments at the University of Adelaide. The image second from the left under the word prototyping at the top there is in Brisbane in April last year, where we were testing the rover prototype in a dark, moonless week of nights with a very bright lamp at a 7-degree angle of incidence. The top left corner and the image that you can see with live written on it, that is a live remote operation of our rover prototype with a 70,000 kilometer separation. The operators were in Denver, Colorado, and the rover prototype was being operated remotely, wirelessly, in Roseworthy, South Australia at the University of Adelaide site. So 70,000 kilometers being the distance from Earth up to a geostationary satellite and back down. We baked in a 7-second delay to try to replicate and actually even exaggerate some of the latency that we'd get from communication with the moon. And on the right, that image, which is looks like a lunar landscape, that is us testing cameras in very bright light. So it's a mercury lamp beaming onto the cameras to test how they operate in very bright lights where there are very long shadows. And of course, we're also testing our operators. To operate something at such an extreme distance, like we're used to operating our robots with line of sight or with very low latency data feeds. So we've created what we call the ROO-VER GUI. And this is a digital twin of the robotic platform and the environment. And it's a human-machine interface which helps our operators to understand what the robot is doing, what the environment looks like. And we get to test that novel way of doing things with the robotic interface. But we also get to test and understand the human factors of this, how humans operate things at a distance in really tricky environments. We've created 4 prototypes over the last, well, within 12 months we did, and you can see that's the demonstration of the rover operating autonomous, or not autonomously, but remotely operated from Denver down here in South Australia. And you can see the team operating that from there. We tested different aspects. We were training AI with the autonomy prototype, and with our mass offload model, we were trying to replicate what it would be like operating on the moon in 1/6 gravity. Our philosophy is to start firstly, with that humility, but really we've got a process where we're trying to understand our risks and we iterate and use data to improve our performance. As I said at the beginning, we want this to be an exemplar in how industry research collaboration works, but it's also an exemplar in over time in how to do things which feel very risky. And if we can do this for the moon, then we can do it here on Earth in Australia and hopefully move up that curve of the OECD for industry research collaboration. We can show how this can be done. I'll just try to answer a few questions here. Do we have a graphic of the lander that we deliver Rover to the surface? No, we don't, actually. So we're traveling to the United States in a few weeks' time. We'll be meeting with the commercial lunar payload services providers. There's around 12 of them. We've done a lot of work already this year on specifying the interface of the rover and how it needs to fit with the lander. So what are our requirements? Those meetings will be to discuss those requirements, and NASA will then go through its procurement process to choose a lander vendor, a provider by later this year. There are a few designs that you can see online if you did a search for iSpace, for instance, and Intuitive Machines and Firefly. So there's a few different types. And they're all very interesting because the design of those platforms is sort of constrained by the launch vehicle that gets them there. So that gives them a bunch of very clear constraints on mass and size and shape. But also the payloads that go on them. And the payloads are different between those different missions that those providers operate. So there's a variety of different ones. And we're not sure what it's going to look like just yet. What do I think we'll learn from this, Jack? I'm learning every day. I'll say that. I learn a lot about the human stuff. I'm responsible for ensuring that everyone has what they need to do their best work for the country here. We're trying to wisely invest and spend Australia's tax dollars and actually our own dollars, because we're all investing in this. Nobody's making margin out of this. So we're learning how to do very hard science and engineering for a very challenging environment, more challenging than we have here on Earth. The technologies that we're developing will have application more broadly across our other industries. What I'm personally really interested in is through our partners, the Victorian Space Science Education Centre and One Giant Leap Foundation Australia. They're our outreach partners to help build curriculum through those partners for school students, that we can help inspire those school students to inquire more and to learn more about space and the moon and our environment generally, and how to do these hard projects and not be scared by them, and to understand that these are pathways which are really important pathways that they can get into. and build their careers and lives around. Over the next few years, we will have curriculum going to around 20,000 Australian teachers for primary and secondary students to learn more about rovers, to build their own, to understand what it is about robotics, and more than just the technical stuff, the things that go around that and inspire people that have a less technical view, but maybe a more artistic or strategy and commercial, like me, for instance, and understanding how that works. Hard projects make people learn how to work differently together as well. And so I think that stuff is almost more important. As you take it out, you take those lessons and you can help the teams. So a big thing for me is helping our young teams. I think the average age is probably in the vicinity of 23 at the moment. I'm certainly at the older end of the spectrum. Some of these people having their first jobs working on this, and I think that's amazing. So, Jack, I think the final answer is the interesting thing with research and development and impact, which is what I'm seeking, which is how do you grow prosperity for the country for as many people as you can. You don't often know what you will learn when you start these things. And only in the fullness of time do we actually realize the benefit. But that's not a reason to not do it. That's exactly the reason to do it, because of the serendipity of novel things that you learn and novel applications for things that you've developed along the way. Andrew, dynamic surveying, it is not one of the mission objectives, no. And the technical capabilities of the sensors on ROO-VER are not, let's just say, not very high res, which would contribute to that. But what they will do is refine technologies and inform the development of new technologies, such as sensors and algorithms and other methods for doing that mapping in those unstructured, unmapped environments, which don't include many landmarks or maps or GPS to help us move around. So I think that's that's a set of things that we'll learn back from that. LKLM, ROO-VER is relatively small compared to other remote devices. Is there an advantage to send more than one unit in a single launch? Yeah, absolutely. Cost is the problem, right? So we're spending $54 million to do this. That's actually relatively cheap to do that. So let's just start there. That's not the expensive piece. The expensive piece is sending a kilo out of the atmosphere up to the moon. Current numbers are in the vicinity of about $1 million per kilogram. The reusable launch vehicles that SpaceX is pioneering is bringing that cost down by orders of magnitude. However, there's still a very significant cost, and this is part of why we want to get up there and be able to do things up there without having to keep going backwards and forwards. I do think that over time, probably in the next 5 years, we will see smaller robotic platforms, potentially in Rackham and Sackham, or other configurations where you could have marsupial robots, for instance, one with a separate one, like what went to Mars, where there's a lander which had a helicopter and go and do some stuff. No atmosphere on the moon, so a helicopter won't work. But I think we'll see some of that, and mass is the constraint there, and the cost of getting mass up there. So that's the trade. Kate, will ROO-VER be subject to shake and bake testing? You bet. You absolutely bet. So testing, we'll be working with VIPAC, scientists and engineers based down in Melbourne, to help us with a lot of that stuff. So they do a lot of work already with defence, with commercial goods, with many industrial clients. So they're a great Australian company, been around for around 30 years. We'll also work really closely with some of our university partners who will also do some of those things, in particular the Australian National University, who has a range of testing capabilities for EM, for instance, electromagnetic things, some radiation testing. So there are beam radiation beams where you can test individual components. We will be shaking for launch force and beyond. So there are specific standards that we have to do that against. And we do that for all of the testing. So there's a whole range of standards that have been developed through NASA and ESA space programs over the years that we'll be testing against. We will do vacuum testing, but what we call thermal, like TVAC testing, so thermal vacuum testing. We'll be testing the components and the ROO-VER in different thermal ranges and in vacuum as well. Yes, all KLM, yep, I'm hearing, just checking, yep. Redundancy, yep, so there'll be novel things that we'll be learning through this to understand about navigation and other things we can do better. I am close to the end of my presentation. I will try to skip through a few more things and just show you a little bit. Here's a render of what our design currently looks like. So it obviously doesn't have the scoop, but we will shortly have some new prototypes, which will be more representative. Something that's really important for everyone to know is that the intellectual property that we're creating through this will be owned here in Australia. So it stays here, it's owned here in Australia. And that's an important thing. We'll be building capability and capacity in the people that work here, and we're trying to stay them here, keep them based here. As I said, we're trying to inspire and engage Australians. So I'm really appreciative of the ability to join you tonight and have your questions come through and answer some of them. Here's a little interesting one. So this is, I believe that's Port Phillip Bay, and a ROO-VER prototype's gone out for a bit of a drive. So it's one of our newer prototypes, and we're testing some wheels, so different wheel topologies. So we've had some interesting help from RMIT to explore how different wheels might work. So doing some very interesting science behind that. Through that work, and also work with the University of Adelaide, we'll be building novel techniques for testing robotic platforms and predicting their performance in different gravities using new models that we'll develop through this process. So that is novel science, which has application internationally. So it helps Australia to take a leadership position in that in the world. Industry development is the key here. So, the Department of Industry doesn't invest in anything unless it's trying to build industry. So I have a critical focus on that. So currently we're in a mobilization phase. We are shortly going to be very heavy in our design and engineering phase. So we're moving up towards this, creating new internships and the new jobs. Some of these numbers are out of date. I'll be clear on that. I've mentioned some bigger numbers. We are targeting towards 50 jobs total in here, and about 100 that will be involved through the whole thing. We are already translating and commercializing technology into other sectors. We're already doing that. We have partners in other sectors that are demoing and integrating technologies that we developed for ROO-VER in stage 1 over the last 2 years, already doing that now. So that's an impact story, which is important for us here, because the sooner you can start on that with technology translation, the better it is for everyone. And yeah, we do have an Australian industry participation plan. I have created that. That is publicly available. You can find that out on the Department of Industry website. So that's been produced. And we're building these plans for commercial viability and impact. So I've got some of those drafts which I need to submit for a major milestone next week. So so the Commonwealth makes sure that I'm spending money well. I think this is just a lovely photo. So I want to show you that. This is our ROO-VER prototype operating at night time. It's CSIRO's Pullenvale site out the back of Brisbane, where EPE operates its Miltex robotic testing facility. So this was a few cold nights, and I really appreciate the time tonight and wanted to just say, let's go to the moon together.
Thank you very much, Ben. It's been wonderful. It's one of the best presentations we've had, I've got to say. When it goes to the moon, like, where is it leaving from? Do we know that yet?
We don't know the launch site. It'll launch out of the United States, almost certainly. Yeah. So our plan is that's where the bulk of the launches go from through our partnership with NASA. That's what will happen. Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. I think there's one last question there. With the lunar regolith being of sharp and very adhesive particles, will the wheels of ROO-VER be potentially 3D metal printed?
Yeah, Kate, good question. And in fact, it goes to everything, right? Because I'll get a little bit of trivia. How many people know the Apollo missions back in the 1960s and the early 1970s, particularly the later missions, they had their own rover, two-person rover. They drove for kilometers, and they had rooster tails of dust coming up, and they're on the surface of the moon for several days, not a short visit like in Apollo 11. When the astronauts were getting back into the lander at night or at the end of their day of activities, they found that the regolith was starting to abrade the seals on their suits. It was getting into the controls. It was affecting everything. This is all pervasive. It goes everywhere. So yeah, we're worried about the wheels. We're worried about seals. So there's novel designs for seals for where the wheels join the chassis, you know, the axles and the motors. We've got to protect because we don't want to short them. We looked at plastic wheels, actually 3D printed plastic wheels, and we've tested a variety of those. What we've also looked at is titanium. So 3D printed titanium is something that we can do. So it's quite light and strong, but the price is probably a little bit high per kilogram for us. Aluminium is probably going to be what we use. And keeping in mind that we've got if we go back to that reliability piece, it only has to be reliable for a certain period of time. I think it'll probably be aluminium at this point, probably 3D printed or machined, and you know, most likely from our partners in Melbourne at the RMIT team there.
I think one last question there is there a ROO-VER mission patch yet? And if there isn't, will it be professionally designed or a competition? Well,
there will be, Andrew. There will be a mission patch. It doesn't exist at the moment. It is definitely in our list of guidelines and things that are going to be done. The Australian Space Agency is actually responsible for that, like the naming of ROO-VER. The name ROO-VER came from a national competition where Australians could suggest names. There were 4 that were shortlisted, and ROO-VER is what Australia chose. I suspect it'll be something like that, but I don't know. That's something for the Australian Space Agency. So watch this space. We'll probably find something.
Now, Ben, I just want to thank you for coming along tonight, and also Jared from Lunar Outpost as well, for indulging us and working with me to get you to come on and give us a talk. I know it was a pretty short notice and a lot of work behind the scenes, and I want to thank Jared for the time spent with me at Space talking about ROO-VER and working with me to get you to come on and give this talk. It's been wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, look, there's 2 words that I use of this. It's a wonderful privilege. It really is. And everyone that works on this, you know, this is certainly not something, you know, when I'm talking about looking at Halley's Comet as a little kid, I didn't dream that I'd be running leading a Lunar Rover mission in a team of such wonderful people that are literally some of the best that our country has to offer, that we should all be proud of, right? It's a wonderful privilege to be able to do this and to share the work that our great team does. Those people in our team, like I don't do the heavy lifting. My job's to enable them. They're doing wonderful work, and you'll see more about us showcasing the work that they do over the next few years and ways for all of you to become involved.
Thank you, Ben. You've done a wonderful job of motivating them, that's for sure. Everyone that I met at Ospace was very passionate about ROO-VER.
Yeah, we're lucky.
Thanks for coming along. now we're going to bring Bill Stent, the telescope gent, in, and Bill's going to follow one of the best presentations we've had. I'm not sure how you're going to follow this one, Bill.
Not sure either. I'll tell you what, one thing though, you know how NASA had their 7 minutes of terror, or whatever it was called, when they were landing on Mars. I think that all of Australia is going to be, I don't know, it's a lot longer than 7 minutes, I suspect, but everyone's going to be holding their breath for quite a long time. And probably, I was just thinking during that descent, I think the person who's going to be breathing the least is Kate. Kate
Yes.
Green. Kate is the number one.
Might have to get her on oxygen. Hey,
I think so.
Are you ready to share your what's in the sky with everybody?
Yes, I think if I just hit the present button, and now I just share my screen. Now,
I can't see you yet, young man.
I don't have a camera on this. On
No,
this
I can't see your presentation yet.
Oh well, let's have a look.
And Andrew, you're welcome. Absolutely welcome. I'm actually trying to, just for everyone who's still watching at the moment, I am in the process of trying to get one of the guys from H-Star to come and present for the ASV next month. Whoa, we're in the twilight zone there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stop that. I'm going to have to go.
So for those who aren't sure who H-Star are, they're a non-dependent heavy transport space service. They'll be launching rockets from Cape York. So I had a good chat to them as well, and we're going to be getting them to hopefully give us a talk next month. So how are we going there, Bill?
I have no idea what I'm doing. So if I just hit allow there, it just goes back to...
That's okay. So what you do, if you now go to the screen that your presentation's on, you'll be right to go.
That would be that screen. Can you see that?
No, we can't. You need to select a specific screen there, Bill. So what you'll need to do is hit present, share screen, and then you'll need to click the button that says window, and then select the window of the program of PowerPoint.
Share screen, select window or screen. That's
it. And then you should be able to select your PowerPoint program. We might have it this time. How are we going?
Is that it?
Yes, we got it. You just got to make it full screen now.
Okay. All right.
Because we can see your entire Windows directory.
I can see just what's in the sky. I can see
No, we can't see that. No, we can't see that. We will get there. We will get there. And Kate, yes, H-Star are awesome. I had a chat to a guy by the name of Luke, and he was very passionate as well. Yeah, absolutely. So let's see if we've got it this time. We have it this time. Bill, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, I just had a little bit of my own 7 minutes of terror there. So, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So this is the What's in the Sky talk for late June and early July. So let's see. Tonight we are meeting. Actually, we're not meeting on the lands of the Bunurong or Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. However, I am currently broadcasting from the lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation because I'm south of the Yarra. So now I'm going to be talking about, as I normally do, general conditions at this time of year. Now, of course, the spoiler is that it's solstice time, so I'll be talking a little bit about that. Then I'll be talking about where the moon, the planets, orientation in terms of constellations and bright stars, and then I'll go through the targets for tonight, visual and photographic, and probably talking about 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Finally, I'll finish up with some things to look out for this month. So, general conditions at this time of the year. Obviously, we're nearly at the solstice. Solar declination, that's the angle the sun is above the Earth's equator, is about as far north as it gets. That is as far from Australia as it gets. So night length is as long as it gets at this time of year. Here's a little graph of it. So the winter solstice is where that blue line, that's the solar declination, moves as far as it gets to the north. It's around about the 21st of June. The equinoxes are when the solar declination is 0, that is, it's above the Earth's equator. And summer solstice, at least summer solstice in Australia, is at the end of December. So we are in, well, the darkest time, which is the start of the coldest time of the year in Australia. That's just another way of looking at the same thing. The solar declination is high at the moment, or should I say furthest north. So down in Australia, we see the sun at a very low angle. So the night length is going to start to decrease from the 21st of June, and tonight sunset was about 5:10, dark about an hour later. Next month, that's going to go back to 5:05. So as you can see, at this time of year, it doesn't actually move very much. It moves mostly at the equinoxes. Sunrise tomorrow is about 7:30. Could be about dark for a little bit more than an hour before that. And next month, that's going to move again only 5 minutes. So sunrise next month is typically 7:30 a.m. So solstice in Melbourne is like 21st of June. That's during the day this time around. It's 1 p.m. The highest the sun gets on that day, at least, is only 28 degrees and 45 minutes. You probably won't tell the difference between that and the day before. Sun is directly over the Tropic of Cancer. That's the one in the green box. So you can see that the sun is shining from above, like the northern half of the sky. So Australia gets plunged into mostly darkness, or at least a lot of it. The shortest day in the southern hemisphere is 14 hours and 27 minutes in Melbourne, and this is a little sun graph I picked from Time and Date, I think it was. That shows that that the sun, the length of the day is in the middle, is minimized in the middle there. Sunset is as far as north as it gets, and this is the Wurdi Youang Solar Observatory in it's west of the Bay of Port Phillip Bay. As you can see, in winter, it's way up there to the right. So that's as far as north as it gets. So what does this all mean? It's the start of winter. The official start of the winter is not the calendar start of winter. The official start of winter is the solstice. So for younger astronomers, this might be a little bit complicated, but there is a link there, a couple of PDFs. So if you find this interesting or intriguing, have a look at the PDF and see what you can do. Do you have a globe? If you don't, a blown up balloon will do. Now the globe is going to have a northern poles. They're kind of tilted on a globe because the Earth's rotation is tilted as well. Now on the balloon, use a marker pen to draw some lines of longitude and get an old astronomer to help you with this. This is your globe and you hold it slightly on a tilt. So now in a dark room, you put the lamp on the floor and you walk around the lamp in a circle, keeping the north pole of the globe tilted in the same direction, like say towards the television or a window or something like that. So you can see that as you go around holding the globe, it tilts and the tilt rotates. This shows how the sun's light hits the tilted Earth at different times of the year. Now the border between the lit part of the globe and the shadowed part of the globe, that's night and day, is called the terminator. It's going to be back. So where are you? This is a question. Where are you when the terminator is furthest from the North Pole? In Australia, which is near the bottom of the globe, we call this the winter solstice, and it's cold. Can you explain why? Similarly, where are you when the terminator is furthest from the South Pole? In Australia, this is called the summer solstice, and it's hot. Again, can you explain why? So where are you when the terminator goes through both poles? And does this happen once or twice as you go around in the circle? And these are called equinoxes. Would that be hot or cold in Australia, or maybe somewhere in the middle? Now your challenge is to explain what this experiment means to the old astronomers. Okay. Now for the selenologists, that's the cheese lovers, the full moon is today. If you walk out, you will see actually, if you walk out, I think you're probably going to see clouds. But if you walk out, and it was cloudy, no, not cloudy, you'd see the full moon. It's deep in the south over the next week, so that means it's going to be moving high, very higher in the sky. It's near its maximum distance, so if you're tracking this sort of thing, it's a mini-ish moon. Over the following week, it's going to set in the early mornings as a waning gibbous moon. That there is actually a gibbous moon. It's a little bit more than half. Last quarter is on Thursday, the 19th of June. It's just crossed into the north, so that means it's going to get lower into the sky over the next week, the week following Thursday the 19th, that is. It rises at midnight and sets at noon, but over the following week, it'll be a waning crescent. It'll get thinner and harder to see as it approaches the sun. This is the time when you view it in the morning, later in this week in the early afternoon, and then before sunrise. New moon is on the 25th of June, which is time to do some astronomy. You'll see it a couple of days after as a waxing crescent after midnight. Waxing? Yes, that's right, waxing after midnight. First quarter is on the Thursday, the 3rd of July. It rises at noon and sets at midnight, which is the best time for viewing. And then over the following week, it'll be a waxing gibbous moon. It's just crossed to the south on the 2nd, so it will get higher over the next week. There is no lunar X this month. Actually, there is, but it's not visible. It's going to be below the horizon. Okay, so moving to the planets. This is from the ASV yearbook. Mercury is an evening object again. It will come out of the twilight over the next few weeks. It sets about 6 p.m. So that's definitely in the twilight. Venus, as you probably know, is a very bright morning object at the moment. It rises about 3:45, and it's very high when you have your breakfast. Actually, you can see it during the day fairly easily at the moment, particularly in the mornings. Mars is an evening object. It's slowly moving away around. It's rising about midnight. It sets about 10:20, so it's moving fairly slowly. Jupiter has gone. It's currently a daytime object, but it's going to pass the sun on the 25th, and then it will become a morning object, although it's going to be very, very hard to see because it's terribly close to the sun. Saturn is also a morning object. It rises about 1 a.m. And the rings are now starting to open. It's starting to become quite visible now. So if you want to see Saturn with your telescope, yeah, it's a morning thing, but it's quite worth a look if you can find it. It's a little bit dim at the moment. Uranus is a daytime object. It rises about 6 a.m. and sets about 4 p.m. So largely forget that one. Neptune is another morning object. It's very close to Saturn. It's going to stay close to Saturn for most of the rest of this year. It rises about 1:10 a.m. So it's only about 10 minutes out of phase of Saturn. Pluto is a late evening object. It rises at about 8:10 p.m. Now, Pluto is always hard to find. It's easiest to find if you have a camera, take 2 photographs over about a week's distance, a week apart, and compare the photographs. One of those stars will move. Okay, so getting orientated for the month. This is the sky at 10 p.m. facing south, so it's actually very close to where we are right now. I've got my clock there, sitting on the South Celestial Pole. The Southern Cross, which is one of our road marking, road sign constellations, is just past the meridian. It's about just a little bit past 1 o'clock on that clock. Let's get rid of that clock. Orion, one of our other signposts, has gone, but Scorpius is high in the east. Just at the moment, it's very, very close to the moon. It's really hard to see. Actually, on a slight tangent, Antares went. Is it Antares, which is in Scorpius? Anyway, that one. It was occulted last night by the moon. I got out. I got out into the backyard and I had a good look. However, it was the moon was so bright I could not see Antares at all. So that was a bit of a bust. It's occultations during a full moon are not as good as when a star disappears or reappears behind one of the darkened limbs of the moon. So that's going to happen next month, but at that time it's going to be very, very low on the ground. So it's may not be visible from here. Too bad. Back to orientation. The stars, let's get the clock back. We've got Canopus, which leads the cross around the pole. And a little bit further around the pole is Achernar, which is that's opposite the cross. It's very, very low in the south. It's possibly in trees, depending on where you are. If you're in Tasmania, you might have a better view of that. If you're in the Northern Territory, you probably won't be able to see it at all. The cross itself points kind of to Speaker in a curving line. Speaker is high in the northwest at the moment. It's not quite in the donut area, but it's very high. If you keep going along that line, you'll get to Arcturus. Now, Arcturus is also just past the meridian. It's high just west of north. Another way of finding Arcturus is, if you can see Scorpius, is follow a line straight through Scorpius to Arcturus. It's halfway across the sky, so it's a fairly large line. Antares, which is in Scorpius, is getting higher in the east. Scorpius itself hasn't crossed the meridian yet. It'll do that in about an hour or so, or possibly next month at 10 p.m. Now, on the northeast horizon, you'll see Altair rising. That's probably still very low at the moment. If you want to see it, it's probably more of a midnight thing, or again, wait till next month, because that'll move into view. Sagittarius is, now that's not a signpost constellation, but it's actually where you see the galactic core. It's rising in the east. It's the next one along from Scorpius, and you look for the teapot asterism. So there's me teapot. Once you see the teapot, it's very difficult to unsee it. So it's quite easy to spot. If you can find Scorpius, go find the teapot, and there's a lot of stuff around there which I'll probably get to. So turning to visual targets for the evening, let's see. Beta Scorpii is a double, and that's the left-hand claw or left-hand, possibly shoulder of the Scorpius. So that's a double star, quite good. You'll need a bit of magnification to be able to see that. NGC 6231, which I think I talked about last month as well. It's one of my favorite names. They called it a false comet nebula, which is just all wrong, because it's not false. It's not a comet, and it's not a nebula. It's an open cluster. But it's sitting there in the curl of Scorpius there. M6 is probably one of my favorite open clusters. It's very, very pretty, and that's just outside of Scorpius. The Moth Wing cluster is right smack bang in the middle of that little curve. That's 6281. That's another open cluster. M7, not far from Butterfly, is the Ptolemy cluster. If you know where it is, you can see M7 with your naked eye. Particularly if you're in a dark sky site, it's big and it's bright, and it's very pretty. It's kind of got an H shape in it, but maybe that's a little bit of pareidolia. Maybe you need a bit of imagination to see that. Antares, again, it's a red giant. Have a look at a red giant every so often in a telescope, just to remind you what that color is like. It's very interesting. The red giants are cool stars, literally cool. They are only about 2,500 Kelvin, which is it's still hot, but it's nowhere near as hot as the 20,000 Kelvins that you get in some of the blue stars. Alpha Centauri, moving away from Scorpius. Alpha Centauri is a double, as is Acrux, another double. They're kind of similar, but I spoke largely about the crosses area last month, so I'll just rattle through them a little bit. The Carina Nebula is still good. It's a little bit past the meridian now, but if you've either got a dark sky site or a DOB or something like that, you should be able to get a good view of Carina. It's kind of pretty. Moving on the other side of the sky, I've been neglecting the east a little bit. M11 Wild Duck Cluster, that's rising, so you'll be able to see that over the next few months as well. And just to give you an idea of what the Wild Duck Cluster looks like when it's good, 47 Tuc is probably a better globular cluster, although it's not very well placed at the moment, so they might look kind of similar. So, and one for the other side of the sky, Algorab, Delta Corvi, it's another double. All right. Photographic targets. These are taken from Facebook. This is what you're going to see tonight. Nothing. Let's get rid of that. Okay, Centaurus A. This is a photograph from Ross Horton. He put it up the other day. It's very, very nice. Hello, Ross. 5128. So that's in just in well, above the cross there. Running Chicken from Rusty McGrath. It's I don't know. I always put Running Chicken the other way up, but maybe that's just me. Rusty's put it up like that. Nice block globules. Carina Nebula. That's well, where the Carina Nebula is on the other side of the cross to the pointers. That's, as you can tell, it's one of mine. It's just too green. Sorry. Fighting Dragons of Ara, NGC 6188, one of Kelly's photographs. It's really nice. I particularly like the way you've got the dragon's egg with the outer shells in it. That's very nice. Mark Braithwaite. This is an slightly older photograph of the of M83, but I couldn't go past it. Look at this. Look at the hydrogen alpha in that. That's really, really impressive. There's the butterfly cluster. Thank you to Jeff Healy. As you can see, it's a very pretty cluster, and it doesn't take very much imagination to see a butterfly in that. M8. This is another slightly older photograph of, from Paul Litchin, my boss. This was taken a little while ago using an ED80, I believe. And Triffin Nebula. This is from Anne Marie. Triffin Nebula is a great little cluster, a great little nebula. It's very, very hard to take a good photograph, and Anne Marie's taken a really nice shot there. Andy Latta. This is a visual photograph, a visual image. I think it's certainly not narrowband. M16, the Eagle Nebula, showing the pillars of creation very nicely there. One of Gerald's photographs. Get well soon, Gerald. He's took a tumble the other day. He's belted himself in the face. I think he lost a tooth. Anyway, M17 Omega Nebula. So that's another one of his. I think that's it. Oh no, one more. Jeff Healy's got a nice Corona Australis area. That's there's a lot going on in this photograph. It's quite a wide image. I really like those dark nebulas. That brown color is beautiful, isn't it? That's the chandelier cluster in the top right hand there. That's a little globular cluster, and there's a number of other named nebulas in the top end there. So they're your photographic targets. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. The moon's still there, I'm afraid. It's, let's see. So the Southern Cross is getting a little bit low. It's about 4:30. Get rid of that. There we go. Scorpius is starting to set in the southwest now, because Scorpius is sort of a long, thin not galaxy constellation. It does take a long time to set. It takes about 3 hours from the left hand to the right hand to set. It takes a long time. Anyway, Orion hasn't yet risen. Well, you may see that next month or the month after. Sagittarius, the teapot, is still high in the west, so you should be able to get a good look at like M6 and M7, but only when the moon has moved. As for planets, tomorrow morning is probably the good time for the planets, because there's not an awful lot going in the evenings. Venus is very, very bright. It's extremely bright. In fact, you can still practically hear it. Saturn hasn't hit the meridian just yet, but it's very, very high at 5 a.m. Neptune is right next to Saturn. You'll need a Schmidt-Cassegrain to be able to see it, but it's definitely there. It's about a degree away, so it's about a finger width away. Pluto is past the meridian. Again, you can use a camera to see it. You probably won't be able to see it much with your eye. Using a decent sized telescope, you probably can actually see it, but it looks very similar to a star next to it. So I think that's all we've got for 5 a.m. Oh, it says incomplete. Oops. Okay, final notes and random observations. On the 15th of June, the moon occults Pluto. That's at about 4 a.m. I'm not quite sure whether that's going to be an easy one to spot. 21st of June is winter solstice. That's in the day. The 25th of June is when Jupiter goes behind the sun and becomes a morning object. On the 29th, Saturn is closest to Neptune. Now, those two planets are moving so slowly in relation to each other, it's very, very hard to tell actually which day the closest is, but, you know, apparently 29th is the day. On the 4th of July, Earth is at aphelion, which is its closest to the sun. So it's 1.017 AU. In around about early December, I think it's about 0.983, I think, AU from the sun. The Earth's orbit is largely circular, but not quite, so slightly eccentric there. On the 4th of July, Mercury is also at greatest elongation, its best viewing time. Look west just after sunset. I can see it from my bedroom window. On the 6th of July, Neptune is stationary, starting retrograde. And if you want to know what that what retrograde means, it means that the planet starts moving backwards in relation to its normal movement. If you ask an astrologer, you'll probably get a slightly different answer. On the 8th of July, Moon occults Antares, but they're very, very close to the horizon. I believe it will actually wink out of existence. Antares will disappear before it sets. That's what Stellarium is telling me. We'll find out. And there we go. There's all my stuff. So if I just stop sharing my screen, we should be able to get back to Mark. Is he there?
He is here.
Yeah,
hopefully
good.
my internet's still working.
Yes, it
seems
is.
like it is. Yeah. Telstra 5G for the win. There we go. Again, thank you to Ben for coming along. Thank you to Bill as well for his wonderful talk. We'll chop off Bill's little What's in the Sky and I'll upload that separately in the next day or two as well. So if anyone just wants to watch that, they can. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching tonight. And thank you to Bill and Ben again for presenting this evening. Ben, it seriously has been an honour to have you as... Sorry, together what?
We're the Flower Pot Men.
We're the Flower Pot Men. Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men. Yes, okay. Well, you are a dad, I know. Yes, and as said, I will pop a whole lot of links in the description over the next day or two for finding out more information about the ROO-VER mission. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.
I think he's saying that we'll see you next month.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
See you next month. I'm trying to end it now.